Alright, there are more people coming later, I think within the next hour or so don't worry, this isn't just it, but this is what we've got for now, so I'm going to make a start. As we've got copies of the agenda, I think, but it's also in the Facebook group in there. I'll just briefly go through it actually. I'll be giving my brief opening address. We'll then have a bit of social time while we wait for the others to arrive. Here we have the Edgbaston Convention, which the GUM approved on Tuesday. And I'll explain a bit about that in a while if you're not fully aware of what that involves. We have 3 open discussions throughout the day. The first is at 12 o'clock is the problem of micronational law enforcement, something of an open problem which has never quite been solved. Then have a lunch break. At 2 p.m. we'll be discussing the role of international organisations. Around 3 p.m. National presentations and speeches, so we have a projector, then it has a slideshow, then we can set that up, and obviously feel free to show off all of your flags and coins and medals and paraphernalia. Then at 4 p.m. we'll be discussing micronational economics, whether or not they're feasible and how they might work. And then we'll finish off potentially with some remarks from Jonathan if he can think of something. And we'll play some national anthems to finish off. And then from 5 p.m. We will have a pub meal at the Crystal Pear, which is about a 10-15 minute walk away. So, I'll make a start with this opening address. Good morning, delegates, and welcome to the first ever Grand Unified Micronational Summit. Today is a momentous occasion. This is arguably one of the most ambitious projects the GUM has ever undertaken across its entire 10-year history. There has only ever been one in-person session of the Quorum of Delegates before today, and that was all the way back in 2012. So today has been a long time coming. There has not been a major UK summit since Polynation 7 years ago. Since then, a whole new generation of micronations has risen to prominence, and indeed, those micronations that did exist back then have come a long way since then. Today we will discuss a range of topics which are pertinent to all micronations in 2019. The unsolved question of law enforcement, the frequently debated role of international organisations, and the often attempted and often failed subject of micronational economics. We will also have presentations from micronations across the UK, allowing them to show off their culture and their history, and allowing all of us to learn a thing or two about what works and what doesn't in the quest for recognition in the world of small nations. Last September, the GUM, along with a number of leading micronationalists from Australasia to Flandrensis, signed the RIVE Convention, a milestone in the fight against fraudulent and fake micronations. Today, we will be taking that one step further with a sort of sequel to the RIVE Convention, the Edgbaston Convention, which sets out baseline standards for how we count our citizens, our territory, and the size of our economies. We hope that this will create a level playing field among small nations and will further tackle the problem of dishonest micronations. It's our hope that today marks the beginning of a new era, not just for the Grand Unified Micronational as a worldwide organisation, but for the whole of British micronationalism too. Great Britain is an island bustling with micronational activity, and yet formal summits and meetings have been disappointingly few and far between. I believe that a major goal of the GUM should be to promote more in real-life summits, not just in the UK, but across the world. After a year in office, my term as chair of the Grand Unified Micronational is due to end on Monday. In that time, the organisation has gone from one which was at threat of extinction, once again, to one which is now the largest and most active it has ever been across its entire decade-long history. As a new generation of micronational leaders rise to prominence, It is my hope that they shall carry on the legacy of the GUM as a force for good, and critically as an active force which makes things like today happen on the international stage. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the summit. So, I'll explain the Edgbaston Convention a little bit now in a bit more detail. So as I said there in that speech, it's about tackling some frequent things which certain micronations lie about, such as how they count their population or how they count their claimed territory. We often see micronations which claim, without naming any names, the entire of the north of England. Although actually I think they're different now. But anyway, you get micronations like that. Obviously that is dishonest, and it kind of sets a bad example. So the three areas we should tackle citizens, because what often happens is a nation will claim a large area, and then they will claim everyone who lives in that area as their population, even if those people have never even heard of the nation which they supposedly live in. The convention deems it improper for a nation to count as a citizen anyone who A, doesn't acknowledge the existence of the state they're meant to be a citizen of, or B, has never stated any wish to be a citizen of that nation state, or C, someone who cannot be contacted by the nation state. And that is quite reasonable. I think it would be unreasonable to claim that any such people could be considered citizens, and yet some people still do. And there are exceptions for that, obviously. Minors can't fulfil those conditions, so they have a couple of exemptions. In terms of territory, the approach that we've taken is that it's improper to claim territory where the majority of people who live there aren't your citizens or family of the citizens, because some people claim their parents' house or whatever without actually asking their parents, and that's fine. We're not too worried about that, but people who claim the whole village, and they're obviously only a tiny portion of the people in that village are citizens of the nation. You can't really claim the entire village. Again, not the entire of the north of England in one notable case, without naming any names. Again, there are exemptions to that. So ceremonial and titular claims, such as the Kingdom of Withen's Holy Roman Empire, has a sort of ceremonial claim to be, the successor to the Holy Roman Empire, and sort of has a ceremonial claim over the historic lands, but they make it very clear that they don't presume, they don't sort of imply that they control that land, because that would be ridiculous, and they make that clear, and that is fine. Also, areas of terra nullius, spell that actually. Is it terra nullius or terra nullius? Yeah, that's right. Okay. So Antarctica and the tower places like that, obviously fine. As well as claims which would have been proper at the time they were established, but have since become improper, would have been considered improper if they were made now. Say, for example, you claim an uninhabited field, that's fine, plenty of nations do that, and then a macro-national developer comes and builds houses on your field. That's not your fault, and since you were there first, that is fine. That is exempted.
Can we use a few case studies just to illustrate it?
Yes.
For example, Wildflower Meadows, which is a principality based in Chester. This nation does claim the entire walled city of Chester. However, it does not claim to control it, and that's made to be clear. That's no pretense is made that the people living in the city recognise or even are aware of this alleged sovereignty. That's about to fall under the first exemption.
Yes, yes, it
ceremonial
would.
claims, for example.
Yeah,
Because
ceremonial
it's
claim.
not claimed that the principality controls the city. It's simply a cultural land for the nation as such.
Yeah. Housing estate example that I just gave, I think it was Luke Weisenberg brought up in the forum the other day. He claimed a field somewhere near his nation, which was uninhabited, and then a housing estate was built on it without him having any control over that. But that's, in that case, it is fine to continue to claim the territory because you were there first. And then we also added in a clause here, also saying that it would be improper to have the entirety of your territory being an object in outer space, because of the Outer Space Treaty and stuff like that, and also a nation which is entirely in virtual space, like in Minecraft or on Micros, because that's not micronationalism, that's geofiction. And then finally, we've put in a couple of clauses about economic indicators, because there is no internationally agreed upon way for micronationalists to calculate their GDP. Every micronation seems to have its own way of calculating it, and it makes international comparison impossible. And the way some micronations calculate their GDP is a little generous, to say the least. So they will take their sort of macronational income, their job in their host macronation, their salary, and count that as part of their GDP, even though they are doing work not in their nation. They're not using the resources of their nation. And the money that is being earned isn't necessarily being spent in the nation. They're buying goods and services from their local corner shop or whatever, I don't know. But then they count that as part of their GDP. I've seen that a fair few times.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm in a meeting. Hello.
So yeah, it basically just says, that it would be proper to claim as part of your GDP any money which comes into your economy through your macronational salary and goes straight back out to be spent on macronational goods and services without ever interacting with your economy at all. Which I think, again, is fair. Unless it's very clearly stated that the labour done abroad is an export and the goods and services which are bought with that money are imports, which means they cancel out for the purposes of GDP. That's fine, but most nations don't really take that into consideration. And I would like to develop this idea further, but a lot of nations either don't care about having an economy, which is fine, or it's just not a priority for them. Only a few nations really sort of delve into this sort of thing, the idea of micronationalism as a business. It's not, not for everyone. So this doesn't really affect everyone, but it's something I would like to go further moving forward as well. So yeah, that's the Edgbaston Convention in a nutshell. Yeah. No signatory necessarily, except for condition 20 was signatory. Okay, are there any questions regarding the Edgbaston Convention? Has anyone, any reservations? Are we all happy with that?
Could I just have a quick comment part? I was somewhat distracted.
Yeah, I know you actually raised your eyebrows at that a bit.
Did you implement any changes after our conversation about?
Not to the economy bit, I don't think, no.
A difference between
The import and export bit.
no, just is this straight from our convention?
Pretty much, yeah. This is boilerplate,
Yes, I mean, it should also be clarified that this doesn't actually impose any demands on nations to make such claims and encouragement to drop them.
Yes, yeah.
So it's not as if, oh, well, you're calculating your GDP wrong, now I have to cut recognition of it.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Not drastic, so
yeah,
that's something.
I described the RIVE Convention, which was the original one which we signed last year about.
Which the original is actually in that folder.
Oh, right, yeah.
That.
That is what I call a hard treaty. So, if a nation, if you're a signatory to the RIVE Convention, and a nation which you have relations with makes false claims, then you are obliged to cut off ties with that nation. This is, on the contrary, the Edgbaston Convention is what I'd call a soft treaty. So, by signing it, you promise not to make any of these claims yourself, but if a nation you have relations with does it, encourage them to maybe be a little bit more realistic about their claims. You don't, it doesn't oblige you to do anything drastic. I think that's a fair way of saying it.
RIVE Convention, of course, is, as you said, this is so much of a secret, as it were. RIVE
Yes.
Convention is very much of a sort of, well, if you are literally blatantly lying, we're not going to accept that. Whereas this is more of a, well, we should do things differently sort of approach.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was, RIVE Convention was originally drafted with countries like the infamous Kingdom of Qatar in mind, which some of you may be well familiar with. They operated very close to Adammia's original territory, actually.
Wasn't it you who originally found out that...
It was me who found out, yeah.
You found their Prime Minister and said, oh, are you involved with Qatar? Involved with what?
No, I was, because their guy, the guy who was meant to be their Prime Minister, I got added to a Facebook chat with some old friends of mine from school, and he was in. I thought, no, I recognise that name from somewhere. So I asked him. He knew who James Passing White was. He knew him. He went to school with him, but he didn't. Yeah, he just stole his identity basically, claimed that he was his Prime Minister. Unbelievable. Anyway, that's a bit of a story there. We've got 2 copies of the Edgbaston Convention because Lundenwic wanted to take one with them so that Julian could sign it. Because Mike Lewis isn't authorised to. Well, I think he can sign it, but he's not. Yeah, he can ratify it. Yeah. So I think Julian has to ratify it. So we've got 2 copies. We'll probably keep one in Adammia after this. I think.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
We kept told, right?
Yeah. I just stop and start the recording. It cuts off automatically after 30 minutes.
Oh, I see.
So it was 18 minutes in there.
How much can we store?
A few hours. The battery runs out before it fills up space.
I'll be charged.
Yes. Yeah, we have a battery charge, yeah. We just have to wait now after it's a stupid thing. Right, okay, that's not speaking, I want to sign that.
Should we first check everybody here is happy to sign?
Yeah, is people here?
Yeah.
Right,
And are authorised to do so for their respective governments and the countries they're representing.
Cool. Right. I'll just put it in plastic bowling. I'm going to file it with them books and all that kind of stuff. Well, I've got a sort of big laser print in my bed. It only does black and white now. Right, yes, it's that now, yeah. I will sign it now.
Alright, thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, good afternoon. about the political situation in Essexia, then Jack will be going for a PowerPoint. So there's no doubt that we're living in turbulent times with the ongoing Brexit crisis, the threat of war with Iran, and an unpredictable president of the United States. Our world since the Second World War has not endured such precariousness. And it was this uncertainty regarding the geopolitical situation that gave birth to Essexia. Essexia was established partly upon the obvious Republican principles of fraternity, liberty and equality, but established also to break the mould of a conventional state. This has included somewhat restricting democratic elements of our nation, such as suffrage and total representation, not as a means for a few times to have total monopoly over the state, but for our system to have the capacity to uphold greater stability. This is not to say these principles of reducing the influence of politics have not been explored before, and we don't see Essexia as being a pioneer of a new political ideology. The Essexian project believes in creating a balanced society, like many states have attempted to do so before, and we stand in solidarity and friendship with these ongoing past movements. A balanced society for us entails the combination of the best elements of capitalism, socialism, authoritarianism, and other ideologies. The blending of polar ideologies will obviously have contradicting ramifications, and no system will ever be perfect. But to provide a system of governance that is representative of more ideologies has enabled us to focus less on the political standing of Essexia and more of the issues of the day. Hence, Essexia has adopted the use of a sovereign who is absolute in their power, while also having a parliament which guides the direction of the nation and is ultimately democratic in its practice. Essexia existing in this way, with blends of both democracy and authoritarianism, enables all sides of the spectrum to be represented through governance and helps to somewhat avoid infighting between different ideologies, infighting of which is the primary reason behind the failure of established states, and the reason for our current geopolitical situation. Ultimately, Essexia exists to prove a nation can escape from politics and provide an alternate and less overbearing system, which, while keeping some of the conventions of the state, seeks to establish a society less reliant on the doings of regular politics, and more of one that can focus on the needs of the day and wishes of the population. We exist, if anything, to prove it can be done, and the success of our system and the Essexian project is why we have the privilege of talking to you today. Upon its foundation in 2017, Essexia has organised and undertaken many interesting events, from the Rush of Fort Morris to the recently held Danbury conference. These events have provided us purpose and helped enrich our culture and identity beside our different political system, and we feel these events would be interesting to share with the forum today. Thus, I welcome to the floor my colleague Lord Jack to explain some of these events in greater detail.
If I stand this side, there we go. So, the history of Essexia, whilst still brief, only about a year and a half old, still probably can't fit on a short slide, but we can give you a pretty good summary of the key events and features of our micronation. So, okay. Oh, that's it. Do you want to play the video? Or? Yeah. We have a short video.
The video?
Yeah. Is there sound? Or?
Let me have a look. Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Yeah, we did have a fancy video, but the sound isn't going to work. So on the 17th and the 18th of June, fairly recently, the key members of our parliament met in an area called Danbury to discuss the future of our project and to write a newer, more applicable constitution. Not only did we achieve all of our goals that we'd set beforehand, but we were also able to cancel the third day and finished early on the second. These meetings have been instrumental in finalising a number of reforms that our government has wanted to make since the start of the year, reforms which have already helped our micronation develop further. These are just some of the details about that. Another recent event is the Wincott Cup. This is a friendly match of the popular strategy game Hearts of Iron 4, which takes place multiple times a year. Every match has a different host to the last, and due to the AI and the event probabilities in the game, the result of the game can be very different from our history and can be pretty interesting. The Cup was named after a great supporter of Essexia, who we don't unfortunately have contact with anymore, but we've honoured him with the legacy of this game. And I think he'd like the fact that it's about cooperating on a different level. These are just the brief results of that game. So we had a few players in the game, but it wasn't politically motivated, it was just who was available at the time. So another notable initiative. Oh, no. Next, we have the armed forces. We don't support micronational wars simply because they're not serious, useful, needed in most situations. We operate the Imperial Essexia Navy and the Imperial Army of Essexia for more defensive benefit, but more so for national morale, public image, and especially for building and practicing new ideas. The Imperial Army is seeing major organisational and equipment alterations under the Ministry of Defence, who can't be here, is in Northern Ireland today. With regular simulated combat exercises to begin within months. These events will train volunteers as well as provide quite a performance to its audience. Our Navy may not fare well against a Royal Navy Queen Elizabeth class carrier, but by number of vessels, we are the 96th largest Navy, ahead of such contenders as Liberia and Estonia. Our fleet is entirely built from scratch at the Imperial dockyards and are undergoing reforms to be updated to stronger, more controllable, more stable marine flight vessels. The largest of which, the IEM Basildon, Catabar aircraft carrier, will be around 2 meters long and features such necessities as a small aircraft catapult and arrestor wires. And there's a photo of the J-Wick, which is our largest carrier. Another notable initiative is EAST, our space program. Calling it a space program is perhaps a step too far. It would be better described as an experimental aeronautics program due to the low altitude nature of our capabilities. We comply with UK law to prevent mishaps and miscommunications and are currently limited to 500 feet. But our rapid developments are creating better vessels and we're getting more data to work with. Finally, to finish on an interesting note, we have the Morals Lane campaign, one of the few spectacles our micronation has organised for the public. On the 10th of May this year, with permission from the premises and a crowd already gathered to watch other remarkable displays on site, 16 Essexians in official IAE military wear marched through an area known as Sandman in formation around Emperor Terry, Lord Matthew, Elfin, who also cannot be here today, and myself, bearing 3 large flags. Met by cheers and supporters, the convoy were praised by onlookers after the performance in an event that will go down as a show of national pride. We have a photo there of myself, Lord Matthew, Elfin, and a soldier meeting to discuss the route. And we do have a video, although the sound won't work, as we found out. But, oh, it's working now. Also a lot of traffic, so there was a lot of waiting.
Oh, damn British.
It wasn't raining, but oh,
But thank you all very much. I hope you learned something about or from us, and I look forward to seeing the other presentations to come as well.
So I represent the Imperial Grand Duchy of Lundenwic. I am the Prime Minister, Mike Lewis. So I'll talk about who we are. So we're located in London, in the UK. That's where most of our territories are. We've also got a territory in Torrevieja in Spain. And we also claim an island in Iceland. But I'll get onto that a bit later in the presentation.
You said that a few times today.
Yeah, I have.
I'm looking forward to this.
So currently we have 6 territories. And we've actually got 2 set to join us later this month, so that will be something you can look out for. I've got some lovely pictures of some other people. To the top right there, that is our Imperial Grand Duke, Julian. Just below him is Roberto Bruno, who is actually our Minister of Justice at the moment. The lady at the head of the table will be the Minister of Defence, Emma Spencer, and the other two girls are just citizens at the moment. So 5 fun facts. So number one. We hold an annual Eurovision festival every year in the capital New Charter. No, we don't try to participate, we just watch the actual show, vote on it, and drink lots of alcohol. Number 2, the card game Spoons was banned in Lundenwic after a drunken disagreement. It's our only ridiculous law that we have, but it's ours and we're keeping it.
No, what happened? No, you have to say what happened.
I think some people just got very upset that they lost, and there was a disagreement. And that's all I can say at this time. So we have 6 foreign heads of state listed within our order of precedence. So that basically means that if the government is wiped out, there are 6 different heads of state that would take over control of Lundenwic at this present time. So to become a citizen, you will actually need to reside within the territory. So the way that normally works is that people cede territory to us and then become citizens. And alcohol is provided at every Parliament sitting. So if anyone wants to become a citizen,
I'm signing up right away.
So I'll go on to just a quick brief history because I realise people won't really know who we are. So we were founded on the 27th of December and declared independence the next day. We sent a letter to the Home Office. We haven't had any reply. I'm sure a lot of my relations are in the same position. So our first election was on the 26th to the 21st of December 2014. You can see I was the bottom of that. The result was that I won with 89.4% of the vote. However, voter turnout was 280%. So definitely some sort of electoral vote rigging there, which led to our first criminal trial, which was the 8th of January 2014. Yes, it was against me. I was found not guilty though. I've got a quote for the Imperial Grand Duke. This was from the trial. I have no doubt that the Marquis or his party was responsible for extra votes cast, but as there was no stipulation of 1 vote per person, no crime was actually committed. So I got off because our elections bill was terribly written, and the vote stood. So, yeah. What happened next? On the 29th of May 2015, ISFIC was gifted to Lundenwic. ISFIC was set up by a guy called Jordan, the Honourable Judge of Internal Matters, and he made the Imperial Grand Duke the Baron of Isa first, which is their capital city. But after periods of activity, he said that he wanted to hand it over to Lundenwic. The problem we had is that he claimed an island in Iceland called Grimsey. It is populated, I think it's got a population of 98 people, which raised the question, how do we govern such a territory? We can't. We couldn't not accept the gift, that would be rude, so we accepted it, and we call it our autonomous region, but we can't physically govern it. So it is part of Lundenwic. It kind of contravenes the convention that we signed today, but we
That's fine. I think there's an exemption for autonomous regions.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I will look into that a bit further.
You'll be all right.
Just as Associate Justice, I would just point out, as long as you are making it clear you don't pretend to control it.
No,
so that's
no,
fine.
we
That's
don't.
fine.
No, we have no control over it whatsoever. On the 20th of August 2015, I founded Free Fascism. Believe me, it's nothing like Nazism or Mussolini's fascism. It was governed principally on a man called Giovanni Gentile. He was socially liberal, but wanted to cut bureaucracy and was staunchly nationalist, and that is what we follow now. I think a lot of micronations these days pretty much follow our model that we rule with as being socially liberal, but obviously every micronation wants to put themselves out there and support themselves. So on the 13th of September 2015, we did have a civil war that started. You can see a picture of our Minister of Defence there. That was in A&E. It started over an ideological conflict. You'll see a lot of cause and effect actually in this brief history. So I founded Free Fascism, and we obviously had a communist party that didn't like it. And so they rebelled. And of course, I spoke about this earlier, they were in a rented property. We could not kick them out at that time. It started very tongue-in-cheek, but obviously one lady did get injured. She got her hand caught in a door that was slammed on it. So that was when we had to call time out and rush her to A&E. She was fine, by the way, absolutely fine, no injury. Or lasting injury, shall I say. On the 22nd of April 2016, we traded with another micronation. Some of you may know the micronation. It was Lundenwic and Gavata. They are now dissolved, I believe. They are, aren't they? Yeah.
I miss those guys.
Yeah.
Really good guys.
I've actually got, so we traded, we bought seeds of them, and we traded cookies in return. I've got these seeds actually with me because I've never planted them. So I can pass those around if you want some seeds.
3-year-old seeds.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then the Civil War ended on the 9th of November 2016. So it was about a year, and that's just one of our propaganda posters. The Civil War was quite interesting. It built us a lot of culture that we still use today. Propaganda is a massive thing within Lundenwic. You'll probably see some more posters as I go through. So then on the 11th of November 2016, we had Cinnamon Creek join as a protectorate. That was an experiment into seeing if we could administer overseas territories. It started well, but it didn't really work out, and the Governor General, I believe, has left the community.
She represents.
His foreign minister.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
she represents Sanders now. Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. But she definitely dissolved Cinnamon Creek, so that no longer exists. So then 2 years after the first election, we had our second ever election. This time it was in the form of a plebiscite, as you can see, and it was me again, yes or no. I won with 100% of the vote this time, and there was 90% voter turnout, and that was, there was no cheating there. And on the 2nd of November 2017, I announced the Declaration of Reformation. That was basically so that we could revisit old laws and update the Constitution, and in changing the role of the Imperial Grand Duke. He is going to be very much a head of state that ratifies what the Parliament do, which wasn't the case before. On the 11th of May 2018, we, one of our territories, the only one in Spain actually, was struck by an earthquake. It was only 3.2, but it still caused a lot of damage. And the property was uninhabitable while repairs were made. And so on the 15th September 2018, we attended Austinasia's 10th anniversary. Why would I put that in Lundenwic's brief history? Well, it was the first time that we had met other heads of state officially. So we were breaking out of our kind of isolated shells, and we finally met, as you can see, Adam and John both in that picture, with the appeal of Julian, although Danny Morris was there too.
Just not
Sorry, I
good
didn't have a
enough
picture.
photo.
I could have got a better picture. And then on the 28th to the 30th of December, we had our 5th anniversary celebrations, which is quite a long time for micronations, 5 years, and we are quite proud of that fact. And so on the 12th of May this year, we actually had a new territory join us. Came quite out of the blue, but we suddenly got a lot of an influx of territories wanting to join. This will mean more citizens. We're hoping it'll be more activity and potential rivals for my position of Prime Minister. And then, who knows what the future holds? Maybe international recognition tomorrow. You just don't know, do you? But that is what we aim for, and that is what we're trying to do. And that is it. Is there any questions anybody would like to ask? Perfect. Thank you very much.
The only eventuality would go place if you die.
Okay. Like the other two people have done so far, this is another history presentation, which is subtitled 6 Years of Nonsense Condensed into Something Which Might Be Understood by Normal People. So, here's the premise. Adammia was founded on the 13th of April 2013. Since then we've had many different governments, all these different events, rocket launch, tourist visit, and all these different periods of activity and inactivity. In that time we've seen 56 acts of council and 64 imperial decrees. That's 120 separate items of legislation. So that's dozens upon dozens of laws enacted, military officers and nobles appointed, territories claimed and subsequently shuffled about. Now this doesn't present a very coherent sort of story. It's a mess of different events in a timeline, and it's kind of hard to see the bigger picture. And we want the sort of casual viewer who wants to learn more about Adammia to be able to see the bigger picture, because that means they may be more likely to join us as citizens. We have a dedicated government agency specifically for maintaining our official histories, which is the IIH, founded back in October 2013. Originally child agency of the Ministry of Information, which has consequently been subsumed into the Ministry of Patriotism, which is one of the sole party government's interestingly named super departments. So over the past year or so, we've started dividing Adamic history into sort of hierarchy eras and periods. So it sort of groups everything, all these sort of endless sea of laws and bills and all these different events into sort of periods which have their own sort of theme. Right? So it's kind of sum up what happened in that period. In terms of population growth, or lack thereof, there were some periods when population decreased, or sort of key political changes, key events, and so forth. So, we're currently in the second era of Adamic history, and that's according to law. We actually wrote that down in a bill. And the first era is defined as a time when I was running Adammia from my family home in Yorkshire. This was before I started here at the University of Birmingham. So I was 15 when Adammia was founded, and we stayed in that area until 2017, when I was 19. So about a year in after I started university, we moved from what sort of seat of government moved from sort of the old provinces, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, the point is, the first era is the point in time where we're in Yorkshire. The sort of seat of power, as you can see, is this lovely building right here, White Gold Palace, as I have sort of ambitiously named it. Interestingly, if any of you ever played the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, yes, it's very much inspired by the White Gold Tower, which is a very prominent sort of landmark from that computer game. And in fact, our capital city is called Imperial City, just like in Oblivion. But and that happens to be my grandfather's house. So back then, Adamic politics revolved around my family, right, my extended family. What we'd usually do is once a week, on the weekend, we'd usually all go through to my granddad's house, and that's where we'd have the council meetings. So all the political players were most of the key political players, not all of them quite often, but most of them were members of the family. So this was a time of political stability, and there was sort of a clear sort of arc of progress, sort of this rapid development early on, sort of peaking in 2015, which is sort of like the golden age of the first era, and then sort of declined a little bit from 2016 onwards, sort of became more isolationist and more inactive for a while. And that's been divided up into 9 periods, which I am going to quickly go through. First things first, foundation period, as the name suggests, it is all about Adammia's initial establishment, and it lasted just 6 days. That's the shortest period we have defined. On the 13th, which was when that is Foundation Day, which is 13th of April, we celebrate Foundation Day to this day. And then we began drafting our first version of our constitution, which we called Supreme Directive for some reason. I had a habit back then of sort of naming things in like an unconventional way, where the Supreme Directive is a term that just stuck around since then. Now, during this time, Adammia is very, very small. Only 2 citizens, only a few square feet of territory. In my bedroom, which is that window just above the front door there, very small little bedroom. That was where we started. Back then, we were focusing on getting very basic stuff, an official email address, and a news blog. And then once we finished drafting the first version, I finished drafting the first version of the Supreme Directive, and it was ratified by the only other citizen at the time, then the foundation process was complete, and then we go into the expansionist period. So this is for the first couple of months after the initial foundation, where Adammia grows rapidly. I started to get all of my family members on board, started with my brothers, and then parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, started to become citizens, and houses became territories. And this was sort of laid the foundations, not just of the territories, but the institutions as well, such as the Adamic Army, the Treasury of Adammia, all institutions which survive to this day, and they're some of Adammia's oldest institutions, go all the way back to those early days. During this time, the population swelled from 2 to 12, and also, as our first steps onto the international stage when we first joined the GUM. That picture there is Titania, which was sort of our key province. That's the same building, White Gold Palace, just a view from the back. Now, at the end of June, so just about 6 years ago exactly, we transitioned from an absolute monarchy to a constitutional monarchy, which established a ruling council, which is something which you'll see, or if you ever look at the Adamic Express online, you'll see most of the articles mention ruling council in some way. It's very, very much has been the crux of Adamic politics for the past 6 years. So the new council passed many laws which sort of helped get the fledgling empire into feet. After this rapid period of expansion, it was time to sort of take a step back, sort of develop our laws a bit, consolidate everything. We did get our first colony, which was in Cheshire, and we had our first ever election too. First ever Prime Minister was my mum, and she did a very good job, and she actually served for the next several periods actually. So she was in office for about 3 years, I think. So by the end of the period gone, so previous period we went from 2 to 12. In this one we went from 12 to 23 citizens, so the growth is continuing. Then we have the military period, and this is so named because it saw a rising prominence of the Adammia military as a sort of volunteer force of sort of friends of mine at the local school, right? So I think it was in year 11 at the time, so I was in my final year. It was only the final 6 months before I would leave the school, so there was only just sort of 6 months where everything sort of focused around the military. Picture you can see there, that's my cousin in the sort of not a very good uniform, a sort of toy gun, which was about all that we had available to us at the time. We have since upgraded to Nerf guns, and eventually one day we may get an airsoft gun. But we had a sort of standoff with a fellow pupil of mine, a fellow pupil called Luke, who opposed the expansionism. This week we sort of played with the local park. He thought we were getting a bit too big for our boots, so we pushed all the opposition and won that conflict. But by the time it was the end of July 2014, that conflict's all been all but forgotten because we all left the school and went our separate ways. But some of the key people back then were the military officers, such as Commodore Bennett, who was one of our sort of Air Force guy. Although the Air Force was just paper aeroplanes at that time, and Lieutenant Rhodes, who was the sort of Special Forces commander. So next we enter the early colonial period, and this is what we call the golden age of the Adammic First Era. So starting sort of mid-2014, Adammia gains its first major colony, Borealia. It's formed from the remnants of, I pronounce it Dionqued, or D-E-O-N-Q-E-D. I think it stands for the Democratic Empire of North Queen Elizabeth Drive. Now it's located in Devon. So that was like the latest in a long line of migrations, which got all the way back to 2003, I think. But it was, you know, it entered decline. It was falling apart. And so they deposed their emperor and made me their new emperor, and I integrated them into Adammia. And as part of Adammia, they actually did a lot of interesting stuff. So they built this furnace you can see here, sort of a homemade furnace. And you can find instructions on how to build these on YouTube. Actually, it's fairly easy. I think you just need a bucket and a source of fuel, and a hairdryer actually usually works. So that could melt aluminium, and later it was upgraded to melt copper. Although, just as I mentioned this, the foundry did once explode in service for a couple of months because I think some water was accidentally tipped on it, like a bucket of water, and there was a big steam explosion. So that was fun. But then we had a lot of achievements in this period. So we had the Adammic space program, so the rockets, and, you know, sort of model rockets that you see at flight from time to time. Essentially just fireworks, right? But except they don't explode, and they have parachute in them. Except for us, the parachute didn't deploy, so the rocket was irreparably damaged when it hit the ground. And then we have all these other achievements. We have this monument here, the Populous Imperium Monument, and that's a list of all of the citizens of Adammia at the time, probably about 60 or 70 or so. So all of them full of honorary citizens, in English and in Latin as well. And of course, as well, that was when I first began my first term as chair of the GUF. So diplomatic influence is expanding. We've got all these achievements going on. The population reaches a new high, 32. So you can see why we call this a golden age. Then we enter sort of late colonial period, where we have another major colony, Adammic Columbia. It's the first overseas territory. So that was led by Grant Hawkins, who is he still involved in Australasia? Yeah. Isn't he your Pontifex Maximus?
No, that's Fredman. No, Grant Hawkins is governor of what was it called?
Hoagland, isn't it?
Hoagland, that's it.
So yeah, he's still around. Basically he sort of ceded that territory from Adammia to Australasia, but that's okay. I think
It was via the Withens Holy Roman line.
it was with women for a while. I remember that. So at this time, we at sort of grants requests, want to get more involved. We create this colonial council, and it's a body which can submit its own proposals to the ruling council. So the colonies have more influence than before. That's why we call it the colonial period. However, by sort of mid-2015, the GUM has had its sort of its second collapse. We were after the first one back in 2010, but so that leaves Adammia with a shadow of its former influence. Before I was chair, now Adammia enters its sort of isolation phase, beginning sort of mid-2015. But we're still highlights in this time. So picture there is me before I had a beard, looking a lot younger, with Johnny Blair, who is a travel writer who has visited quite a number of migrations, Australasia, of course. And you can read all of his travels on his excellent blog, Don't Stop Living. And he's visited migrations all around the world, and he gave a visit. He was only in Adammia for a few hours. He's always travelling somewhere. He's a very interesting guy, actually. He's been to Antarctica, he's been to North Korea, I think, as well, all kinds of places. Anyway, so we did have achievements, and this was also a time when sort of political parties were beginning to form in Adammia. So I encouraged them to form the belief that if we have parties competing with each other, that means that there'll be more people coming up with ideas, so you won't just be me doing everything. But while the parties existed now, they didn't really play much of a role. So we have these three parties, like Liberal, Moderate and Labour, but they didn't really play much of a role, they just sort of existed on paper. We did have elections that are still, obviously, the Emperor Mother continued to be re-elected. She was a moderate candidate now, rather than an independent. And but there wasn't very much campaigning. The elections weren't very hotly contested. They were very little effort was put into campaigning. But that will change, we see later on. So 2016 is where the sort of decline really sort of starts to set in. So those two key colonies, Borealia and David Columbia, they voted to leave the empire. Borealia had this referendum, and then a few days after Borealia went, David Columbia went with them. So, and we also lost an esteemed citizen as well. And that sort of caused all the business at home to grind to a halt. The economy entered recession. We didn't have a working economy. So my granddad makes his own wine, and we'd sell that. And I was doing my YouTube channel as well, when I was making gaming videos a long time ago. But that sort of started to decline, and the void on the colonial council was filled by this sort of alt-right Adamic National Party, which was basically school friends of my brother, Daniel, 3 years younger than me. They were arguing for all these sort of controversial policies, which caused a lot of tension between me and them. But meanwhile, the Emperor Mother's sort of 3-year political whole of the nation came to an end. The Labour Party Prime Minister, Lord Kenner. Interestingly, the reason I haven't gone to press yet, because I've got a bit of a background with the Adammia Express articles to write, but the Emperor Mother and Lord McKenna married a week ago today. No, a week ago tomorrow. So, yes, she was actually succeeded by her own partner, who defeated her in an election, and now they're married, which I don't think is, you don't normally see that sort of thing in machinations. But in September, I began studying here, and that caused further complications, because the ruling council met in person, and it was a lot more difficult for me to go home and chair those meetings, so sort of business started to grind to a halt, and by 2017, the empire sort of appeared almost dead. It's completely withdrawn from international affairs. The ruling council is doing very little. Do take a seat. The ruling council is doing very little. However, already the seeds are starting to be sown for the sort of revival, right? So I'm at university now, and people at Adammia, people at university sites learn about Adammia. My flatmates at first. Some of them joined the military, so we had that military period early in 2014, and all those people left eventually. But then we have another sort of the military starts to grow again, and we started to play in new territories in Birmingham as well. And then eventually, sort of mid-2017, I made the decision that it's time to move government over to these new territories that we're creating in Birmingham, because it's just not viable to run things from Yorkshire anymore. So so the AMP now has basically died off. So the stage was set for a sort of new generation of politicians, such as my housemate, Lord Helliker, who had in fact was the person who ratified the Supreme Directive all the way back in the foundation period when there was only 2 citizens. It was myself and him, and he was the person who had ratified it all those years ago. Ended up being my housemate, which is an interesting story, perhaps for another time. But so now we have our sort of final set of elections, and it doesn't surprise that I mention this, but we got a Liberal Prime Minister for a while. It was my brother, Prince Jake, but his term was cut short by this transition. And then we enter the second era, the era we're in now, right? So this is defined by Adammia in Birmingham. The seat of power is in Birmingham, specifically in the province of Essexia, my house, which you can see there, a mile or two away from here. You can see the Adammic flag flying in the window, that flag right there, in fact. And now we have this new generation of Adammic leaders, right? And these are largely members of the Liberal Democrat Society here at the university. So they're all into politics. They're a lot more keen. They get this stuff a bit more than my family did. They're a bit more engaged than my family were. A lot of times when my family would have a lot of positions of power, they were sort of humouring me, and they would just sort of go along with everything that I suggested. Whereas in the second era, people sort of start to challenge sort of imperial authority. Like, it starts off quite low key for the first year or so, but as we'll see, things have changed quite a lot. So the rebirth period. So the transition has happened, and we have our first new Prime Minister, Lord Helliker of the Moderate Party, defeating Lady Simpson's Nuclear So-and-so Party in the November 2017 election. And now things start to come to life again. The isolationist sort of period is over. We rejoined the GUM. And also now we have Adammia sort of has a neighbour now, the Kingdom of Waziristan, which was created by Ned Hilton, a good friend of mine, a member of the Liberal Society here. So we have a sort of whole community of micronational activity now happening in Birmingham, and population now swells to 43. So before it hit 30 and it sort of stagnated and tapered off a bit, and now there's another sort of resurgence. And we do a lot of other things. So sort of early modern. This is in the past, very recent now, sort of past year or so. Lord Helliker's government brought in a lot of important legislative changes, implemented the court system properly, allowed marriage to be performed in Adammia. We signed our treaty with Australasia at long last, and we also began to form a close relationship with Nolan. There's the Tsar of Nolan, Thomas there, who fortunately can't be here today. That's us signing the Cardiff Pact. So Nolan is one of Adammia's only military allies. We only have 2 military allies, and there's a signed big agreement at a pub in Cardiff. By July 2018, so about a year ago, as of next week, I once again became chair of the GUM. That's which is what I'm now just about to step down from. And the older picture there, we found the Adammic Navy finally got a vessel. So that's my uncle. So that is the river at the back of his house, a 4-man canoe. And then things start to change rapidly, right? So this is the current period, and it's called the populist period, because in September of last year, a series of events sort of inspired the formation of the Storm Party, a populist, anti-establishment force in Dallas politics. So the unpopular merger of Lord Helliker's Moderate Party with the Liberal Party, which caused the Liberal Minister, Lord Gert, to resign from the cabinet, which was an unprecedented decision, along with sort of poor economic news. So whilst everything else had been recovering and diplomatic standing was recovering, the economy had never really recovered from this sort of transition. That bad economic news and sort of more recession sort of set the ground for Juliana Saunders, a new citizen, to win an unexpected landslide majority. So now the elections are becoming very hotly contested. 2018 election was the most hotly contested election by a mile. So we had all sort of propaganda being made and shared in our official Facebook group, sort of debates going on. We even had opinion polls for the first time, which were wrong as it turned out, by a large margin. And that brings us up where we are today. Because of the Storm landslide, we now have all these new constitutional reforms, which are due to come in on Monday, 1st of July. We have an amendment to our constitution coming in, which brings in this new House of Citizens, an online chamber. And I think that pretty much brings us up to where we are. And I don't think there's anything else after this, so we'll leave it there. That lasted quite a while, actually. Sorry about that. The rest of you can do the presentations now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, delegates of the Grand Unified Micronational. This is a message from His Imperial Majesty James II, the Aspen Emperor, represented by myself, Lord Jamie of Essexia, on behalf of His Majesty. Good afternoon. Though I cannot be here in person for this great step in micronational history, I share the same excitement and anticipation for this conference. Though my remarks will be short, I want to begin by thanking the delegation from Essexia for allowing Aspen to be represented at this event. I would also like to thank the leadership of the Grand Unified Micronational for organising and hosting this event. In light of this event, I'm very excited to introduce Aspen for the first time in public. Aspen is a micronation that was founded on the 27th of November 2018. As such, we are a very young micronation, but we intend to uphold the values and principles laid out as a convention by the micronational community. Perhaps the most important aspect of Aspen is its democracy. Aspen is guaranteed universal suffrage for all men and women and all races and ethnicities. We have a legislature which equally represents each individual and a powerful Supreme Court that may question the decisions made in Parliament to protect the interests and well-being of the people. Though we are still young, we hope to make our mark on this great community as we continue to grow and learn. Today is such a day. I hope that you come out of this presentation with a new knowledge of Aspen, its people, its democracy. Thank you all. James.
So Aspen's prepared PowerPoint and like to show. So in the presentation, Aspen is going to be covering history, culture, government, and the future of the Aspen Empire. And they hope that you may leave this presentation with more knowledge and a sense of it. Aspen was established on November 27 by His Majesty James II and the founding fathers of Aspen. The first full constitution was written in January after the collapse of the Aspen
Imperium
Empire, and we've since become better at constitutional processes and conventions. Aspen was accepted into the GUM on February 10th, 2019, and in June they conflict with another micronation called Crescent conflict, which resulted in the formation of the short-lived Republic of Aspen. Aspen has come a long way since it was first established, and they hope to grow as they progress further into global micronationalism. Aspen is located in southeast Virginia in a region known simply as the Hampton Roads, a region known for its early settlement by the British at the Jamestown settlement in 1607. The culture of Aspen is regarded to be indistinguishable from the culture of the southern United States, except in regards to some Welsh influence from Aspen territories in Wales. Aspen's government is perhaps the defining feature of it. Aspen features all the standing conventions of the British constitutional monarchy, but also incorporates strong German and French influences. The constitution of the Aspen Empire is perhaps one of the longest micronational constitutions known to exist. It has a full length of 40 pages of text, not including amendments. Aspen's constitution is very in-depth. It takes strong German and British influence, but also contains an established code of laws known as the Aspen Code. The constitution was reformed in early 2019 by the Parliament Acts, which transformed Aspen's legislature from a Congress to a Parliament modelled after the Westminster model. The Aspen government is defined by three offices: the office of the Emperor, the office of the Chancellor, and the office of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The Emperor of the Aspen Empire is the highest office of state in the Aspen Empire. The Emperor's duties include making official addresses to Parliament, approving legislation, and acting as head of state. The Chancellor is the head of the government in the Aspen Empire, and their role is that of a chief legislator. They command the majority of Parliament as well as serve as first on equals in Parliament. The Chief Justice is the head of the Aspen judiciary, and their role is to mediate the Supreme Court and serve the highest judicial authorities of the Empire. Looking ahead, Aspen's aim to begin working on establishing diplomatic links between various micronations, as well as continue work on various domestic projects. Closing remarks for His Majesty the Emperor. My friends, we have entered a new age of micronationalism, an age of unparalleled recognition and understanding. This summit is the foundation of this second golden age, and after seeing the presentation, I hope you will leave satisfied with the knowledge you received on how Aspen will grow